Opera. It's all divas, decadence, and drama, right? Well, not quite. Festival Opera is thrilled to bring you our interview series Behind the Mask, and I'm your host, Ruchi Capella. Artists and collaborators share their stories of blood, sweat, tears, and triumphs in navigating performance careers and their unexpected paths to full on love affairs with classical music. We embrace creating a platform for discussing current social issues in the context of opera as an industry and humanizing the arts. Join us for these approachable, inclusive, humorous, and candid conversations. It's opera unmasked. Today we sit with Nikola Printz, a mezzo-soprano in the Bay Area and 2021 Marilla Young Artist, who recently did episode 2 of Festival Opera Mixtape, which has done really, really well. So please check that out on YouTube whenever you can. Nikola, thanks for sitting with us today.
Of course.
And before I get started, just in good form, I'm Ruchi Capilla. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns.
I'm Nikola Printz. You can call me Nika, and I use they, them pronouns.
Great. So Nika, I really enjoyed getting to listen to your program. I'm going to ask you some questions about how that came together, but just to get some background for our viewers, how did you discover your musical talent?
Well, I don't have professional musicians for parents, but I have professional music lovers for parents. That's
Mhm.
for sure. So I just think our house was never silent. My mom is very famous for banging on the wall and saying, record, like change the record. So she's always playing music for us. My dad would love to cook pasta and pretend to be Luciano Pavarotti, even though he's not much of a singer. So I grew up around music, and I started off on piano, mostly because I wanted to learn how to play upside down like Mozart does in Amadeus, which I can't.
Oh,
That's one of my party tricks, one of my many party tricks.
very nice.
But I have always just like loved music, and I kind of came to singing last. Singing was the last thing I came to because I was a very shy and awkward child. I don't want to say shy. I want to just say weird and not really into using my voice very much. So um, I think I got as much music as I could with instruments and with listening, and then singing came to me last, and it was the one that made the most sense.
So you're describing kind of feeling introverted and not necessarily, cueing into your voice as immediately. What was the gateway drug for that?
Let check. It was a choir teacher telling me that I would be a better singer than I was a pianist. Uh, not a very good choir teacher, but I I loved playing piano and singing along with piano. I love accompanying myself. And another teacher was like, wow, you should really try out for this choir festival. You should really try out for this summer thing. There was this Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Arts.
Mm.
I got in my sophomore year of high school when I was 16. And I got in never having had a voice lesson and just wanting to sing jazz and blues. And Diana Walters was my teacher there. Hey, Diana, if you're watching this, we're still friends on Facebook. She's
Oh,
fabulous.
nice.
She's like, you're an opera singer. And I'm like, no. And apparently she was really right. Like she got a good ear. Um, it was basically just people like kind of telling me I should try something. And I tried it, and I fell in love. I fell in love with arias that I first learned, which I'm embarrassed to say are not arias that I should have been singing when I was 16. Um,
But that's a universal story, right? Like,
a little bit of Stride la Vampa, a little Azucena from a 16-year-old. Carmen was the other thing I picked up, and um, thankfully that's one that I do get to sing. um, But yeah, it was really just like people kind of hearing me and being like, wow, that's an interesting sound. You should sing. You should do that more. And I feel like to this day that kind of follows me. I feel like a lot of the music I sing a lot now is because someone heard my voice. They're like, have you tried this? And I'll try it. I'll try anything.
Well, that sounds like so nice to have such an experimental and open approach to the classical repertoire that you've picked up. Do you have any other motivators, I guess, or anything else that kind of cues you into classical music specifically?
I just love that there is no economy of expression. It's just like big and forward and obvious, but still sometimes subtle. There's so many different colors in all of classical music that I don't find in many other types of music. Because it's such a vast, I mean, the genre of opera in and of itself is so vast.
Right.
And it's just a lot. It's just an endless treasure trove of things you could learn and interesting things to sing. Um, I know I think I'm probably like universally disliked by a lot of pianists who I have to work with because I'm like, here's this weird piece of music that no one's ever heard. Do you want to sight read it?
I think that's a reasonable request.
Keep I like just keep people on their toes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and what I gather, which I mean, I'm throwing a dart out here, but it sounds like you, like myself, want to be in a career where you can constantly be surprised and
Yeah.
find new things
Mhm.
to engage with. So that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of ways to grow vocally into classical music and discover. Um, so it sounds like you came to classical voice work a little bit later. And I've noticed that, you know, on social media, you'll do covers of alternative music or more contemporary music. What was the music that you connected with, like during your development, that you may not be expected from you as a Marilla artist or a modern opera singer?
Well, I am a child of punk rock parents.
Yeah.
So I love punk rock. I was in a punk rock band in high school. I played guitar very badly, like power chords only. I love like Riot Girl, like Bikini Kill, of course, like Kathleen Hanna is a root for
Mhm.
me. I love Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra, The Descendants, Joan Jett, who is playing at Stern Grove the day after the grand finale. Ugh, like, yeah,
Nice.
so I love punk rock music. I've always kind of had a lot of. I didn't get to rebel against my parents because my parents were such cool people. So I just kind of put a lot of my teenage angst and like all my feelings into punk rock, uh,
Yeah.
which is still there. I like want to be the punk rock kid of opera, kind of.
Yeah, no, I think you're very successful at that. And I really connect with that personally because as somebody who was kind of told when I started singing that I had a very classical voice. I grew up so much on classic rock and early 90s alternative and probably got into punk later in life. And I liked the idea of having many voices. I read a book recently, and now I'm not going to have I won't have an exact name for an author, but it was called Multivocality, and they talk about transvocality and how we get this concept of, oh, we can only, like, there is a quintessential singular voice, but that's not necessarily something that I connect with in terms of really being at home in the instrument and feeling like you have flexibility with that. And I don't know if that's something that lines up for you.
Oh, 100%. I think, especially as singers, it is the most human and the most personal kind of expression. There is no extension of our instrument, there's no buttons to press, there's no keys, there's no aperture. We are the aperture. And so I feel like people with complex souls and complex identities and complex ideas need to have to be a singer, you need to have a lot of tools to reach from. You need to have a lot of different ability and flexibility in your voice, which is, I mean, it's fine if you want to sing one kind of music and this is what your voice does and you know that. That's also perfectly okay. There's no right or wrong. But what you're saying, like, what was the term?
Transvocality.
Transvocality. That's beautiful. Um, being able to express yourself in different ways using your voice, I think, is really important. It's a very important skill that I hold very close to me.
Yeah. And with that, do you consider yourself vocally cross-trained in classical and contemporary commercial music styles, or is it not even anything that formal in terms of designation? I have my own opinions on this, but I want to hear from you.
I think there are some, I think I try to reject as much pedigree in music as possible. Even in opera, I don't want to be known as the person who studied with this person. I want to be known as the person who sings this way.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to non-classical music, I approach it like a listener does, like someone who consumes that music. Like I love listening to Radiohead, for instance. Do I want to sound exactly like Tom York? Not really. But do I want to adapt the way I'm singing, the way I'm vocally trained to suit singing a Radiohead cover? So I'm not exactly trained in that style of singing, but I am able to apply what knowledge I have over breath and, vowels and phrasing. That in and of itself is able to be applied in all different areas of music, I think.
Right. And as a voice practitioner, I did that. Um, I, but speaking to this, this transvocality idea, the fact that you are able to kind of adapt both your vocal approach, vowel, resonance considerations, pretty with a fair amount of facility, I would say. Um, that bleeds into the seamlessness of your mixtape program, which I really loved. And I wanted to ask you, how did you choose repertoire for this performance, and what were you trying to achieve and embody for that program?
Well, if I can be a little bit cheesy.
Yes.
Um,
It was for Pride weekend, so that's fair.
okay, so this is going to be really gay.
Okay. I'm
So
buckled in. I'm ready.
buckled in. Okay, so my partner, who is not a musician, I'm also a music lover. I don't think I could ever be with someone who's not a music lover, but my partner
I understand.
has never heard me perform live. We started dating a month before the pandemic, and they weren't able to make it to my last couple of shows I had before the shutdown. So they've not seen me perform. And it's like one of the biggest parts of me. And so when Zach asked me to do this, I'm like, can someone watch? Can I bring my person to come watch if we're recording this at Piedmont, which is a beautiful place to record. So I already knew that they would be able to come watch. And so in my brain, I'm like, I kind of picked stuff that not only I love, but stuff that I thought that they would love too, that they would love to hear, and stuff that kind of speaks to me and stuff that I think they would understand, not being someone who knows classical music very well. I remember the first time we met, we both mentioned the term saudade. Saudade. It's spelled Suadede.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Portuguese term, and it is one of those untranslatable words of the act of missing someone while they're still there. It's like beautiful. And they mentioned that. I'm like, I sing a song that has that word in it. It's Bahianas Brasileiras. And so these little things I picked because I'm like, how do I want to, the first time this person hears me sing, how do I want them to hear me? And I wanted to choose stuff that I was really comfortable in repertoire wise. I of course wanted to, I picked stuff that I could really show off, because I am a humongous show off. So I picked stuff that like really I felt able to drop into and very
Mm.
comfortable doing, and stuff that meant a lot to me. And we so rarely get to pick our own programs like that as singers. It's like a
Yeah.
luxury.
It
So
did very much land as being cultivated. So I definitely got Queer and I definitely got in real time Love Letter. And that's
love letter.
yes, very nice. So and a reminder for anybody who's watching this, it's on YouTube, same channel, festivalopera.org too. If you for some reason get lost, please check it out. It's 30 minutes of your time. Very well spent. Um, I do want to congratulate you on being one of the 2021 Marilla Young Artists. How do you feel about being in this program, especially after a year of COVID?
I mean, I was supposed to be a 2020 Maryland Young Artist too, but I had been waiting. I went to the Conservatory of Music for my undergrad,
Mhm.
so I'm from the Bay Area, so I grew up always wanting to be in Maryland because it's not only one of the best programs in the country, but it's San Francisco. It's in my hometown,
Yeah,
and I auditioned like 4 times before I got in. Like, don't stop auditioning. If you don't get in, try again and try again. That's my advice to everyone, all of
yes,
you. And so after my third time auditioning, I'm like, maybe I'm not the person for this program. Maybe this is not for me and this is not my avenue. And so the last time I wasn't going to audition, and my teacher, Sherry Greenwald, was like, you should sing for us. Why not? And so I did, and I got in. And so being in it now, especially after a year of COVID, like having waited my entire adult life to get into this program, it feels a little odd. Um, it's, you know, I'm suddenly surrounded by opera singers after singing alone in my studio for a year and a half. Um, I can't describe like the first time I sang a duet with someone. I was just like, oh, this is
did you feel inhibited?
no, I felt like it was almost like I don't want to say disassociative, but an out of body experience. Like,
Hmm.
going into the program, I'm like, do I still remember how to be a good colleague? Do I still remember how to make music and be collaborative? And I've been worrying about that for longer than I want to admit. And when I did it, I just dropped in. I'm like, oh, it's like something else, like something kicked into gear and something
Right.
started, like a light turned back on.
That's
So
wonderful.
it's great. And it's also good because I have not noticed how tired I am yet. Because
Well, I know. I mean, I came out of the pandemic realizing that I'm a terrible colleague and a horrible misanthrope, but I'm a decent performer. And it's nice to hear that. I mean, I think even socializing after quarantining or social distancing is so taxing to bring on the added layer of performance and for it to be on target and to deliver is kind of mind blowing.
yeah, we had a master class with Warren Jones, and he said something I already knew, but I will now for sure never forget. He said, "Show up and be excellent always." And it's so true of a program like this. You have to always be on your game. You have to always be sharp with it, taking in knowledge and computing it in real time. And luckily, I think that's one of my strengths as a singer is, again, someone tells me a bit of information that I didn't know before, I didn't think about, and I can compute it and be like, okay, I can make that adjustment. um I might not be perfect on the first try, but if you give me a couple little adjustments, I can make it better.
Right.
And so I now have to come into like every coaching, every rehearsal, any kind of interaction with someone. You have to be, you know on your game and ready to work, ready to make it perfect, which
Right.
is it's everyone is nice. I want to preface that everyone here is super nice, but you know it's a big load to like
It's
carry.
demanding. Yeah.
Very demanding. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and you shared a little bit about, what it is like having this kind of call to arms for such an organized and rigorous program as a vocalist. What are some of the other, like maybe unexpected skills and journeys you've had as a result of developing as a classical singer?
Yes. Well, I think the first lesson we all learn as performers is that, as singers, is that we are not just singers. We are actors. We are dancers. We are models. We are lip syncers because we have to lip sync in this project we're doing with Marilla. You cannot be just a singer. You have to be a very well-rounded performer. And again, it's all stuff that I feel like I knew that you had to be able to act. You had to be able to move your body and inhabit your body in a way that seems authentic and real. But I guess I didn't know to what extent, like, I would be calling upon a lot of other skills to be a performer, like, for the aerials, for doing circus stuff,
Hmm.
how much that has changed the way I perform and completely revamped me as an artist to have another skill that makes it that gives me ease in my body.
Yes, I'm glad that you brought it up. Please, like, tell me a little bit more about your history as an aerial artist as well as a dancer, and how that's impacted, your stage presence and your work as an opera singer.
Well, I picked up aerial arts when I was doing a young artist program in Memphis. Just kind of wanted to do it for fun, just for like a fun exercise. Like people do pole dancing all the time and people, do Zumba. So I'm like, oh, this is like one of those classes and I'll, get in shape and have fun. And I didn't realize to the extent like how much I would get obsessed with it. And I think maybe it's secretly I wanted to be a gymnast when I was younger. And now I'm like living out this like fantasy of I'm not a great gymnast. I'm not a good tumbler flipper, anything. But yeah, I just got really, really obsessed with it. And someone were like, you should try singing while you do it. Have you thought about that? And I'm like, I don't know if I could sing while doing a pull up, but I'll try. And, lo and behold, what was it? 2017 is the first time I did any kind of singing aerial act. It's on YouTube. It's not very good. It's on my YouTube page if you guys want to see it. I wrote a song based on an Anne Sexton poem, and I did
As you do.
and I did a dance to it. Um, and yeah, from there, I just kind of started getting more inspired and wanting to do different apparatuses. So I started off on the lira, which is the hoop, and
Mhm.
then I discovered trapeze, and I think that was the one that clicked the most for me. It's this beautiful combination of hard. So in circus, there's hard apparatus, there's soft apparatus. So soft is silk, soft is like rope, something that's bendable, malleable, and then you have hard, which is lyra and pole.
Mhm.
But trapeze is both of them. You have the hard and the soft. You have something malleable and you have something very heavy and something very like I'm trying to find the good word. I want to say straight, but I don't like that word. Um,
Linear, durable.
yes, linear. Um, so yeah, it's something I guess just a hobby that I've become so obsessed with that it's become part of my job.
Yeah. And how have things changed in terms of you singing simultaneously while doing trapeze?
Well, the more comfortable I got doing trapeze, the better I got at doing pull-ups, honestly. All singers should do pull-ups. You should all do pull-ups. It's perfect. It's the perfect combination of making sure you're aligned, making sure you have a nice pelvic tilt, get that hollow body going. Anyone who's taken voice lessons knows about that pelvic bowl tilt. We all know about
Mhm.
that. But it's also, as I've gotten more comfortable moving, I've started to think of phrases of music that you move to like phrases that you sing to. So when we think of, singing a line of music, we think of, that nice legato, that nice arc. You phrase it. And I guess before I really did aerials, I never thought about phrasing my body movements
Mm.
in the same way that feel musical, but also natural and authentic. So it has changed the way I perform on the ground too. It has completely changed the way I inhabit my body, which is amazing.
So do you feel like your legato is now more effective or more intuitive because you have that, I guess, analogous movement?
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you pair it with singing, because there's sometimes where we have to sing and dance at the same time. Like every time I sing Carmen, you gotta know how to move your body while singing. So when I think of, I mean, you can even pare it down to phrasing like an expression on your face, giving something an arc. So now instead of seeing things in like movements and pieces of movements, I see it in sequences, or I think of things in sequences. And it's so funny how like one skill can translate to all of your other skills.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I wouldn't call myself a dancer. I can kind of dance. I like to refer to myself as a mover
Okay.
because I've had some formal training in dance, but I like to think of dancing and movement as being something that is more natural. Because if I try to do like, a routine on the floor, I feel like strange and disjointed and like not on the beat. And
Sure.
if I just think of wanting to move in a certain way and wanting to do a couple different dance moves, it comes a lot more naturally to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so you've shared a lot about doing pull-ups, working in more movement, auditioning as many times as possible. Is there any other raw advice that you have for aspiring classical voice professionals?
Be yourself. Don't be anyone else but yourself. And it's hard. It sucks. People are going to try and get you to stop being yourself. But that's the best part about you is you. And if you
Mm.
strip that away by trying to conform to whatever you think the opera world wants, which thankfully is starting to change, um, it won't be real and it won't be authentic and it won't be good. So I
Right.
think my advice is, can I cuss? I can't, can I?
Yes, I think you're fine.
Be your fucking self. Just be yourself. Be queer, be cool, be loud, be quiet, just and do the things you like to do and show when you like to do something. I think
Yes.
I think what makes me a good performer is that I like to do it. And you can see
Yes.
that when I perform.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and speaking of like being yourself, being authentic in the space and the artistry that you do, like we often expect a representation of like cis white gay men in classical music, and that's like whenever we think of LGBTQ representation, like I think that's like oftentimes what comes up for people. How has it been for you to navigate classical voice as a field as a non-binary queer person? Um,
It's hard sometimes. Even and it's the same, it's kind of like similar when people are really trying to do right by you and trying to be an ally, they still fuck it up.
yeah.
Um, you have no idea how many times I've heard, "Oh, Nikola's non-binary. She's so great." So it's a cognitive dissonance.
Right.
And if I can give any advice to non-binary singers and trans singers is combat only what you feel like you have room for and you need. Because
Yeah.
yeah, you probably have experienced this too. It's not, sometimes it's like not worth it to
Yeah.
always be, you know, fighting everything around you. And I found that the thing that gives me the most ease is that I know I have a really strong community of friends. I have my partner. I have people who know me and who see me as I am, as a non-binary person who's not a woman. I'm not a woman. I'm not a lady. I can look really good as one and I can play one on stage, but I'm just not a woman.
Yeah.
So having community that really is rooting for you and understands you and sees you, I think is the most important thing to have, because you won't always have that in the opera world. It's just a
Yeah,
sad fact. Um,
absolutely. And I see that you're unapologetic in owning that. And of course, like we're both non-binary and present in very different ways. And like I I used to say that I feel like I put women on in the morning and I carry man with me everywhere I go. Um,
Love that. Yes.
which is like not it's just not an easy thing to explain unless somebody lives that. But bringing all of these like facets of your identity as a non-binary person, what is it like for you to embody roles that are written primarily or presumably for cis women or with cis female characters in mind?
Well, I think it was because of opera that I realized it's like gender is such a performance. Like,
Mm-hmm.
an opera is archetypal in its gender performance. That's what makes it so much fun. Like, I can put on a wig and just be the femme of all femmes, which is Carmen. And then I can take it off and just take off my makeup and be myself. And then the next day play, Octavian, who's like a hot dude. Like, giving it's it it opera begs of us, if people really look into opera and listen to it and feel it, they would realize how absolutely queer it is. It's so
Yeah.
queer, it's so over the top expressive, and again making fun of the archetypes of what we think of as gender.
Mm.
And I have opera to thank to teach to have that taught me that it is a wig I could take off at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
who I am, you know.
Should we market it as high drag?
I always joke whenever I have to wear a dress, I say I'm an opera drag.
Yeah, I mean, in how you describe it, like that's what comes up for me like immediately. And
Drag.
yeah, I I wanted to also state that like you share a lot of posts on social media highlighting both your androgyny, like gender fluid fashion choices, if that's what you, and celebrating your body kind of exposed in ways that are not necessarily super common in the opera industry. And trust me, if it was somebody who's a cisgender male, I would ask this question also. I'm just I let Zach get off easy first first
Good.
interview I did, but I won't do it next time, I promise. Um,
Um,
but
it's opera itself is queer, but the opera community is not, and there is so much inherent misogyny in how we police femme bodies. So like
mm,
I combat that by leaning into what people say they don't like, which is nudity. I
yeah,
have I have no like I have no problem showing my body. I work hard for my body. I love it. I live in it every day. It's my very special flesh prison, so why not show it off? Like,
that's like probably my favorite quote today.
I mean, I've thought about this so much, especially because, I make my Instagram profile public so people can see. I mean, I've made sure I've combed through the years and being like, maybe I get rid of that picture. Maybe we don't need that. But like you look at the top picture, there's a picture of me in a bikini that covers like this much of my boobs. And I will not take it down because one, I look great in that picture. And two, like think of an opera like Salome. She has to be fully naked on stage.
Right.
Um,
Well, people can't decide that somebody being bare for a production is okay, and then somebody being bare in their own right is not, you know?
Yeah.
You can't just decide that for a specific gaze or for a specific audience, it's acceptable. That's, capitalistic. I won't get into that, but
Well, I guess I've operated on the assumption of like if I'm, showing a little skin, you're welcome. That's if you don't like it, you're welcome. If you love it, you're welcome. Um, I my parents are wonderful people who taught me never to be ashamed of my body in all its forms, whatever it looks like. And I think that's part of like people wanting us to be very buttoned up and conservative. And I just can't live that way. And if you don't like it, then don't hire me. But if you like it, then hire me.
I
why
mean,
would why wouldn't we want people like our performers to be like comfortable in their bodies and want to show themselves?
right. I mean, it's absolutely necessary for what the work is, I think it's necessary for being able to be vulnerable and comfortable and explore character. You know, like, and if you were to imagine what Carmen would be doing on Instagram, like,
Oh yeah. There's
right?
there's traps.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I did want to spend a little time to talk about it because I think it's, as a person who does a lot of social media stuff and sharing for festival opera, for me it's like I do see a lot of, this is the acceptable peplum that somebody's wearing, or this is the, you know what I mean. And so it's like nice to see like diversified examples of how people present themselves in a public way, and kind of let you in terms of
Yeah.
their expression.
And for me, it's like it's part of like it's not just my body I want to see all bodies celebrating themselves. It's I mean, I'm not super into the body positivity movement. I'm into fat liberation
Mhm.
and making sure every person's body is seen and respected and not discriminated against. And so when I see people like saying, oh, you can't wear that, it's not flattering, or oh, you have to wear Spanx under that, or oh, you have to button up because it's too much of this and not enough of that. And I think that's
Yeah.
all inherently like it's body negative
Right.
and it's policing, and it happens mostly to femme bodies.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I think that's unacceptable
So you
to,
would say body neutrality is probably more where
yes, body
you
neutrality
land.
is where I like to live.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and meet you on that. I'm gonna try and be more expressive and
I mean,
and more celebratory.
here's the thing. I don't think everyone should have to, pose naked on Instagram. That's not what I'm getting at. If you like to cover your body, beautiful. I just think everyone should be able to present themselves how they want to.
Absolutely.
And they shouldn't hear guff for it.
No guff. This is a no
Everyone
guff
should celebrate.
space. I agree with that. Um, I'm glad that you get to share and wax poetic on that, because I think it is such an important piece in terms of inclusion. And I think that there's such a history of very rigid rules about what people audition in, what people present in, how they take their headshots. And, I'm sure we could spend a whole evening
Oh my
just on that alone.
yes.
Um, I guess kind of hopping to something that's a little bit related. If you could deconstruct or eliminate aspects of opera culture in addition to what you've shared, what would they be?
Racism. The practices of these hegemonic practices of
Yeah,
stereotypes and racism, I just get away with it. Gone.
right. With shout out to Black Opera Alliance today too.
Yes, shout out to Black Opera Alliance. Also, I mean, make making sure there are much, much less white men in power in opera. And that feels like that goes hand in hand with everything else I want. But I really think our audiences are we want our audiences to be getting younger, right? We want to see people who see themselves reflected on stage.
Yes.
So casting practices, I mean, just again, it's more inclusivity, more diversity. Stop doing as one with cis people, please. I mean, stop.
Absolutely.
I mean, doing any shows that aren't directly written or produced by people that they represent. Um, I don't know. It happens so often that it's hard to pick out one example of it happening, but
Right.
it's really just like holding opera to the standard that we are trying to hold Hollywood to, and
Yes.
trying to hold nonprofits to, and trying to hold pretty much every other aspect of arts to, is um, the people whose stories are being told should be in control of that.
Yes. Yes. And everyone wants to come in and resonate with something. And
Mhm.
also people want to be surprised.
Yes.
And that won't happen with how practices are currently. So, it ends up hurting everybody in terms of funding and engagement and maintaining, a diverse and current audience for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, SF Opera is actually one of the companies that are doing much better than most
yes,
in terms of representation.
for
There are
sure.
companies who are doing much worse. And I will say, it's the smaller companies that I am always pleasantly surprised by. Like not only festival opera, but also a company like Opera Modesto,
Mm,
who I've worked with, who's in the middle of like Trump country in California, are doing so many amazing things, featuring mostly performers of color and queer performers in
yeah.
their online recital series. They featured Babatunde. Do you know Babatunde?
No,
The
tell me.
hip hop Figaro guy. Oh, Babatunde is great. He is a baritone, kind of like a Escamillo kind of baritone, bass baritone, but he also like raps opera. He went viral for a video. I'll send it to you later. It's
Please.
so good.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. I mean, I think there's something special about like smaller, like regional opera companies. You have smaller boards, they're usually more community,
Mhm.
driven, organized, and so, taking the risks in a way, especially if you're trying to differentiate from what the larger houses in the area are doing, allows people to take more risks and have more immediate like results and responses to those kinds of pressures, which is pretty exciting. And it's been enjoyable for me to be a part of like festival to watch that unfold. And there has been obviously a history of working with artists who are people of color and queer artists as well, and continuing to build off of that so it feels not just reactionary but has a
Yes,
history in the company. That's a rare thing to experience.
and a consistent practice.
Yeah, exactly. That can expand and that can continue to grow. um I want to ask a little bit because you hinted at this early in our conversation. So I've seen you self-accompany on ukulele and piano for some of your social media posts, and you said that instrumentation was like a big part of your early music development before you became a vocalist. Do you play any other instruments? And apart from early punk rock band, have you collaborated with other musicians in unexpected ways?
Yeah. So I've been playing ukulele since I was like 15. I started with a little. I actually have my first ukulele. It's here with me now. It's a little soprano that I've had. I got a gift card to Guitar Center when I was 16, and I got into governor's school from my godfather. And so I bought a ukulele, not knowing how to play it, and I've just been teaching myself. And since then, I have a lot more. I think I have two soprano ukuleles, a baritone, a tenor. I have a mandolin, I have an auto harp, I have a banjo, and I have two guitars. And what else do I have? I want to learn the cello next. The cello is kind of next on my list. But
Nice.
I love small stringed instruments, zithers. all like I think there's something so beautiful about a plectrum instrument. Um, and of course, like piano and organ were the first ones that I really got into. Um, but yeah, I have an electric ukulele too. I don't think it works very well, but I I was in like bands in high school. I've collaborated with one friend of mine who's a guitarist. We played at Yoshi's. We played for Pepe Romero.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, it was when I was at the conservatory, and we have this thing called the guitar voice recital, and I
Mm.
saw everyone signing up. Everyone's doing De Falla, everyone's doing Schubert, everyone's doing or that or Dowland, and I'm like, I want to do a Nancy Sinatra song. I wonder if I'm allowed to do. And I just signed up and I said I want to do Bang Bang by Nancy Sinatra. And my friend Ramon, who's an excellent guitarist, was like, I want to do this song, and we've like worked together ever since. So doing a lot of jazz. Uh,
Nice.
I love dropping into like a jazz like chamber group. Oh my God, Nicola. Um, I like dropping into like jazz trios, jazz quartets as a
Mhm.
singer and just like jamming. It's really fun. It's fun to just kind of give yourself permission to make music that is
Yeah.
not for anyone but you.
Would you make like an indie album?
Oh, absolutely. It's like my secret dream. I really, over the quarantine, I really got into like music like Marika Hackman and Art School Girlfriend, mostly because that's what my partner listened to. So I got really into it as well. But like very dreamy, sad indie pop was
Mm.
features. Angel Olsen is another very favorite artist of mine. So, I mean, yes, I would absolutely love to be like a gay rock star.
Yeah, I see it for you. I think you have that option for sure. Are there other like talents and pastimes that you have that people who don't know you would be surprised to learn about? I mean, I think we've covered a lot, but
I don't
I
think.
figure you're holding out on me a little bit.
Okay. I love roller skating.
Hmm.
I don't think that should be surprising from me by now, though.
No.
I love riding motorcycles. I recently got really into photography, film photography. I actually, right here, my dad gave me his first camera, Pentax,
Nice.
which is fun. I've been like taking pictures of Marilini here, which is fun. It's a good way to practice taking headshots and stuff. What else? I'm not good at skateboarding, but I like to skateboard. Like anything with like wheels that's a little dangerous, I like.
Okay, so everything that's like artsy and a little bit punk rock and a little bit, yeah,
Hipster.
I feel you. Yep.
Um, I am actually very good at latte art. I had many jobs as a barista. I worked for like a couple blue bottle places. I was known for being able to do a treble clef as a pour. I can send pictures as proof.
Okay. Yes, I want I want that I want that substantiated
I think
personally.
my favorite one, and if you go really deep on my Instagram, you can find it. I was doing an opera about Dadaism and the regime of Stalin in Russia. And so one day I was bored at work, and so I drew a portrait of Stalin in a latte.
You have photographic evidence of this,
I
yes?
have photographs.
Okay, I
I will.
want it. I won't put it in the promo for this episode, but like I do want it for myself. um just circling back, what are some of like how would you describe singers and conductors, and if you work with composers, what qualities do you like in musical collaborators?
Um, I love like I love an ego death. I love people who are so accepting of wanting to make something cool and interesting that they're willing to let go of preconceived notions. I try to be that way. I'm not always successful, but I try to be that way as much as possible. Um, I love people who have multiple ways that they can do something.
Mhm.
Like, ooh, try it this way. Ooh, try it this way. I love improvisatory play. Really off the cuff. I like people who learn their music.
You like
Who know?
professionalism, just basic showing up. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I don't know, I like when people are just like fun and respectful and cool. Um, some of my favorite conductors I've worked with are people who are interested in what I have to say about the
Mm,
music and not just like this is how I conduct it.
right.
Like people who just want to work together and not just someone who's just trying to steer the ship.
Yeah. It sounds like true collaboration is a rare thing.
It is and it isn't. I feel like I've had a very healthy mix of conductors who really want to like support me and do what I want, and conductors who have their very own strong ideas, which of course it's my job to follow you. So whatever you want, I'll do it. And I won't complain, especially not in front of you. Um, but yeah, I just love the collaborative nature of music. Even as an introvert, I like to spend. I'm misanthrope. Years. I'm so misanthropic. I love to be alone. I love to be like in my own head. But there's something so wonderful. Like music is such this pure mean of communication that even if I've worked in so many situations with people who have nothing to do with me or my identity, nothing, no political stance in align, nothing. But we can still make music together and we can communicate on that plane. And I think that's really cool. That
Yeah.
it brings so many different kinds of people together.
Yeah. That's well said. I had such a wonderful time talking to you. I'm going to have you give me some hot takes in your lightning round. So just a few words at a time. But of course, like what I loved about Shaunette's episode is that there were some paragraphs that went along
Yeah.
with some of the responses. So that's totally okay too. But I'm just going to ask you a question and tell me what comes up for you. What's in your workout or driving or etc. playlist right now?
A lot of Megan the Stallion. I love
Yes.
a lot of Megan the Stallion. My workout playlist. What else is on there? I could probably pull it up. I have like 3 different workout playlists depending on my mood. I also love, surprise, surprise, I love to work out. So if I'm going on a run and it's foggy, I have a very specific playlist. What's it called? Sad Boy Goes on a Run. So it's a lot of like indie rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a playlist called Run Bitch. And it's got Mystical,
Perfect.
Tina Turner, Fulanito, a lot of like NERD, like a lot of
Mm.
hip hop, Pheromone. And the other one kind of has a lot more like emo indie rock. Like if I feel like being moody or angry, so that's
Yeah,
more
you're
pop
like angst run. Okay,
fun. Yeah.
I got you.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about what's your like go-to comfort food?
White cheddar popcorn and grapes and seltzer. Grandpa.
You just wanted to cover carbonation, sweet, and having that like salty. So yeah, I understand.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense. Do you have a preferred cocktail or beverage?
I love Manhattan. Manhattan's like my
Hmm.
go-to. I also really love um I love ginger beer. I like the spice of ginger beer. So like a Moscow Mule or a Kentucky Mule I love.
Mm,
Yeah.
very nice. I agree with these choices. If you could have an alternative career, what would it be?
Like Evil Knievel. Like a stunt man. I want to be stuntman Mike. Yeah.
That's perfect. Um, if you celebrity crush,
Prince.
yes, yeah. Okay. Nobody really beats Prince. That's it. This can be two separate questions if you want. Um, a dream role and a favorite role that you've performed.
I feel like if you asked me this like when I was 22, I've already performed my dream roles. Carmen, Isabella from L'Italiana in Laggeri, Lucretia from the Rape of Lucretia. I mean, one of my dream roles now, it's because it's always changing. One of my dream roles now is Octavian, for sure. It's my role study here while I'm at Marilla, so I'm willing it to be a reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my dream role that I'll never sing, but I hope, well, also Zalame. I could probably sing Zalame someday, maybe. But I think a dream role that I'll never ever sing would probably be Lucia di Lammermoor. Not for
Yeah.
me. I love it, but I think the first time I discovered opera, I watched The Fifth Element, and
Ah.
the Diva's Lament,
Yeah.
like I think I was like 8 years old. I'm like, what?
And if for some reason, not for some reason, for good reason, somebody were to commission an opera that had a non-binary mezzo role.
Like a story about a non.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a whole bunch of queer and trans folks.
I'm trying to think of, because I think this might be a little bit too like gender conspiracy theory for this podcast, but I think
No, say it. I want to hear.
most people in history are non-binary.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with that too. It's just whether people admit to the.
Oh,
You made me out myself. How dare you?
I think anyone can be made to be non-binary. Like I did with West Edge Opera, we did Orfeo di Euridice, and Orfeo was non-binary because it makes absolute sense. Why does Orfeo have to be a man? It's a myth.
I feel that way about Turandot.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Like, I was like, there's a reason she's angry. And that's like what I think it is. I think.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I can pull so many examples of operas that already exist that I'm like, that character's non-binary. Did you guys know that character's non-binary? Because like queer people, we do this thing where it's like, that's actually a really queer story. Did you know? Like if you
Yes.
it's like queer coding things.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, but I guess would you have interest in it being a contemporary story that is canon, that is explicitly written as such?
yes. I mean, I think so many pants roles should be played by any most Baroque opera.
Yeah, just put it in the editing line. Just be like, okay, we've declared it.
That's a hard one. Yeah, I mean, I would love for someone to write an actual like opera about like Sappho that makes sense. That's not about her killing herself for a man that left her. Looking at you, Gounod, because like he wrote one beautiful aria, O Malire Motel, but it's about killing yourself after a man leaves you. I'm like, that's not Sappho. That's not what she was about.
Not rewrite history this way. Yeah.
So there's less about stories that I want to be written, but more about stuff that I want to be rewritten and reimagined, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think I'm hoping that with people restaging or changing context or finding ways to bring queerness into the forefront through the dramatic retelling, that starts to happen more and more. Yeah. I would be interested in seeing that very much so. So yeah. I think we've talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to make you, Nira, your answer. What would you sing if not opera or classical music?
I'd want to be in like a hair 80s metal band like Heart.
Yeah.
Crazy on you.
Yeah. Perfect. That I see. Very much so. I could talk to you for ages. Nika, thank you so much for sitting with me today. This has been wonderful. Again, Nika did a wonderful Festival Opera mixtape episode, episode 2, that released on the 27th for Pride weekend, alongside Brian Nees, who's our Festival Opera conductor, excellent pianist, long-term like collaborator with you from undergrad, right?
Mhm.
Wonderful, wonderful. So please check out that program. Please support Festival Opera. Share this interview. This was such a wonderful conversation. I hope that you'll come back and chat with us again soon.
Absolutely.